The moment my husband patted my knee and called my billion-dollar idea a whim, I knew our marriage was over. He just did not know it yet. There I sat, 35 years old, in our pristine beige living room that smelled like vanilla candles and suffocating dreams. My laptop was open on the coffee table, displaying wireframes and market research that had consumed my nights for weeks. My heart hammered against my ribs as I waited for his reaction to what I knew could change everything. "Babe," Kieran said, his voice dripping with that condescending tone I had grown to despise. "That sounds like a side project. Focus on something realistic. You have got a stable job. Do not blow that up for a whim." His hand landed on my knee with the weight of dismissal, treating me like a child who had just announced she wanted to be a unicorn when she grew up. The gesture was gentle, but it crushed something vital inside me. I felt my shoulders cave inward, my spine lose its steel, my voice retreat back into the silence where it had lived for far too long. But only for a moment. I had always been a planner. Color-coded calendars, detailed lists, strategic thinking that mapped out possibilities years in advance. Even as a little girl, I knew what I wanted. To create something meaningful, something that would leave a mark on this world long after I was gone. I wanted to build an empire that would matter. Life, however, has a cruel sense of humor. It hands your dreams to someone else's comfort zone and watches you choose between your soul and their approval. In my early 30s, I had married Kieran Blackwood, a smooth-talking financial analyst who loved predictability, routine, and being right about everything. He was the kind of man who could make spreadsheets look sexy and turn risk assessment into foreplay. Our friends called us the perfect power couple. I called us a slow-motion tragedy. When I first brought up my idea that evening, my hands trembling with excitement and terror, I thought he might see what I saw. An AI-powered platform that would connect talented women freelancers to socially conscious startups. A bridge between brilliant minds and meaningful work. A solution to the systematic undervaluation of female talent that I witnessed every single day. Instead, he saw chaos. He saw risk. He saw his wife threatening the carefully constructed life he had built around us. "The market is oversaturated," he continued, not even looking at my research. "You would need serious backing. Venture capitalists are not exactly lining up to fund feel-good projects. And honestly, who is waiting for your little app?" Your little app. Those 3 words echoed in my mind like a death knell. Not our potential. Not your vision. Your little app. As if everything I had poured my heart into was nothing more than a hobby, a cute distraction from real life. I closed my laptop slowly, each click of the hinge sounding like a door slamming shut. "You are right," I whispered, hating myself for the lie. "It was just an idea." He smiled then, satisfied that he had steered me back to safety, back to my soul-numbing 9-to-5 job at Morrison & Associates, where I spent my days optimizing other people's dreams while mine suffocated in silence. But late at night, when Kieran was snoring beside me, lost in dreams of quarterly reports and investment portfolios, I would stare at the ceiling and feel something burning in my chest. It was not heartburn from our predictable dinner routine. It was hunger. It was ambition. It was the desperate, clawing need to prove that I was more than his comfortable assumptions about what I should be. 3 weeks after that devastating conversation, I found myself sitting in yet another mind-numbing meeting at Morrison & Associates. My colleague Zara Patel was presenting her latest project, and I watched as our male bosses systematically dismissed her innovative ideas while praising the mediocre suggestions from the men in the room. Zara caught my eye across the conference table, and I saw something there that made my chest tighten. Resignation. The same look I had been wearing for months. The look of a woman who had learned to make herself smaller to fit into spaces that were never designed for her brilliance. That evening, I went home to our beige monument to conformity and tried to share what I had witnessed. "Kieran, you should have seen how they treated Zara today. She had this incredible concept for sustainable packaging, and they just—" "Sweetheart," he interrupted, not looking up from his financial news app. "That is just how business works. Not every idea is good. Maybe her pitch needed work. Maybe her pitch needed work." As if the problem was Zara's communication skills, and not the systematic bias that plagued every industry I had ever worked in. But what if it was not about her pitch? I pressed. What if it was about the fact that she is a woman with ideas that challenge the status quo? Kieran finally looked up, his expression a mixture of patience and annoyance. You are being dramatic. Success is about merit, not gender. If women are not advancing, maybe they need to work harder. Work harder. As if I had not been working harder my entire career. As if Zara had not been working harder. As if every woman I knew had not been working twice as hard for half the recognition. That night, after Kieran fell asleep, I opened my laptop and stared at the wireframes I had hidden in a folder labeled Random Ideas. The platform I had designed was not just an app. It was a revolution. It was a way to connect brilliant women like Zara to startups that would value their contributions. It was a marketplace for talent that refused to be diminished. I began to code. Not with fanfare or announcements. Not with Kieran's blessing or anyone else's permission. I coded in stolen moments during lunch breaks, in bathroom stalls during dinner parties, in the blue glow of my laptop screen while my husband slept peacefully beside me, unaware that his wife was building the future he had told her was impossible. I taught myself UX principles through online courses, consuming knowledge like a woman dying of thirst. I attended webinars on my phone while grocery shopping, taking notes on the back of receipts. I networked through LinkedIn messages sent from coffee shop bathrooms, connecting with other women who understood the hunger I felt. 3 months into my secret project, I had a prototype. For months in, I had a name. Helia Connect. Helia, the goddess of the sun, bringing light to places that had been dark for too long. The platform was elegant in its simplicity. Women could create profiles showcasing their skills, their values, their vision for meaningful work. Startups committed to social impact could post opportunities that went beyond profit margins. The AI matching system I had developed would connect souls to purposes, talent to missions, dreams to reality. 6 months after Kieran had patted my knee and dismissed my ambition, I launched the beta version of Helia Connect. I still remember that moment. It was a Tuesday evening in October. Kieran was at his monthly poker game with his finance buddies, probably bragging about his stable home life and practical wife. I was sitting in our home office, my finger hovering over the publish button that would release my creation into the world. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. What if he was right? What if this was just a whim? What if I was about to humiliate myself in front of the entire internet? But then I thought about Zara. I thought about all the brilliant women I had watched get passed over, underpaid and silenced. I thought about the little girl I used to be, the one who dreamed of building something that mattered. I clicked publish. Within the first hour, I had 20 signups. Within the first day, I had over 100. Women from across the country were creating profiles, sharing their stories, uploading portfolios that showcased talents their current employers had never bothered to recognize. Startups began to take notice. Small companies with big hearts and bigger missions started posting opportunities. A sustainable fashion startup in Portland connected with a marketing strategist in Miami. An educational technology company in Austin found a brilliant product designer in Seattle. A clean energy initiative in Denver discovered the perfect community outreach coordinator in Chicago. But the real magic was not in the connections. It was in the stories. Women were writing to me, sharing how Helia Connect had given them hope, how it had reminded them that their skills had value, how it had provided an alternative to the soul-crushing cycle of undervaluation they had accepted as normal. Within 3 months, Helia Connect had over 1,000 users. Within 6 months, we had 3,000 signups and had facilitated over 500 successful matches between women and startups that valued their contributions. I was operating in complete stealth mode. My day job at Morrison & Associates continued as usual. I smiled at the morning meetings, nodded at the afternoon debriefs, and saved my real energy for the platform that was growing exponentially in the shadows of my conventional life. Kieran remained blissfully unaware. He still saw me as his practical wife who had temporarily entertained some silly business ideas before coming to her senses. When I worked late on projects, he assumed they were related to Morrison & Associates. When I attended networking events, he thought I was being social for the sake of our image. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. During the day, I was trapped in a marriage that diminished me and a job that drained me. But at night, I was building something extraordinary. I was creating opportunities for women who had been told they were not enough. I was proving that there was a market for talent that refused to be underestimated. The first major media attention came 7 months after launch. A journalist from TechCrunch had discovered Helia Connect through a startup founder who credited the platform with finding her secret weapon. A brilliant operations manager who had been overlooked by traditional recruiting methods. The article was titled Helia Connect, the platform that is revolutionizing how startups find female talent. It featured interviews with both women who had found meaningful work through the platform and startups that had discovered incredible team members they would never have found otherwise. The day the article went live, my phone exploded with notifications. Investors were reaching out. Podcasters were requesting interviews. Women were sharing the article across social media with captions like, "Finally, someone gets it. And this is what we have been waiting for." I was sitting in my cubicle at Morrison & Associates when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, this is Maya Chun from the Startup Her podcast. Would you be interested in being featured on our show to discuss Helia Connect? Our audience would love to hear your story." My hands were shaking as I typed back, "Yes, I would be honored." That evening, I sat in our beige living room, staring at my phone and trying to process what was happening. My secret project was becoming a phenomenon. Women were calling it a game changer. Investors were calling it the future of recruiting. And I was sitting next to a husband who still had no idea that his wife was becoming someone he would not recognize. The podcast interview was scheduled for the following week. I told Kieran I had a work call and locked myself in our home office for 2 hours, sharing my story with Maya Chun and her thousands of listeners. "What inspired you to create Helia Connect?" Maya asked. I found myself speaking truths I had never voiced aloud. I was tired of watching brilliant women accept less than they deserved. I was tired of seeing startups struggle to find talent while incredible women were being overlooked by traditional systems. But mostly, I was tired of being told that my ideas were not realistic. "Can you tell us more about that?" I hesitated. Kieran was in the living room, probably watching financial news and planning our next predictable weekend. There are people in our lives who love us but cannot see us. They see their version of who we should be, and they mistake their limitations for our reality. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who make us feel smallest. After the podcast aired, things accelerated rapidly. More media attention. More investor interest. More women signing up for Helia Connect every day. I was operating in a parallel universe where I was successful, recognized, and valued while simultaneously living with a man who saw me as nothing more than his stable, practical wife. The breaking point came 3 months later. I had been invited to speak at a Startup Her conference in San Francisco. It was a huge opportunity. 500 women entrepreneurs, potential investors, and media coverage that could take Helia Connect to the next level. I told Kieran I had a work conference. It was not technically a lie. Helia Connect was work, even if it was not the work he thought I did. The conference was transformative. Standing on that stage, looking out at hundreds of women who understood the hunger I felt, sharing the story of how Helia Connect had grown from a rejected idea to a platform that was changing lives, I felt more myself than I had in years. The presentation went viral within hours. Videos of my talk were shared across LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Women were commenting with their own stories of underestimation and triumph. Investors were sliding into my DMs with serious offers. But the moment that changed everything was not on that stage in San Francisco. It was 3 days later, when I returned home to find Kieran sitting at our kitchen table with his laptop open. On the screen was the video of my conference talk. His face was a mixture of confusion, betrayal, and something that looked almost like fear. "What is this?" he asked, his voice deadly quiet. I set down my suitcase and took a deep breath. "It is my company. The one you told me was unrealistic." "Your company?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean the little app idea you had? This is what you have been doing behind my back." Behind his back. As if my success was a betrayal rather than an achievement. "I have been building something meaningful," I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest. I have been proving that my ideas were not whims. He stood up, and I could see him processing what this meant. His practical wife was not practical at all. She was ambitious, successful, and operating in a world he had never imagined she could access. How long, he demanded. 10 months. 10 months. He was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. You have been lying to me for 10 months. I have not been lying. I have been protecting my dreams from someone who did not believe in them. The words hung in the air between us like a guillotine waiting to fall. I do not recognize you anymore, he said finally, and there was genuine pain in his voice. For a moment, I felt the old instinct to apologize, to make myself smaller, to choose his comfort over my truth. But then I thought about the women who had found meaningful work through Helia Connect. I thought about the startups that had discovered incredible talent. I thought about the little girl I used to be, the one who dreamed of building something that mattered. That is because, I replied, my voice clear and strong. I finally recognized myself. The silence that followed was deafening. We stood there in our beige kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of a life I had outgrown. And I knew that everything was about to change. This is not the life we planned, Kieran said quietly. No, I agreed. It is better. I moved out a week later, traded our beige monument to conventional expectations for a small loft in the arts district with terrible plumbing, but incredible light. The space was 1/3 the size of our suburban prison, but it felt infinite. Every morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, and I remembered what it felt like to breathe. The divorce was ugly. Kieran's lawyers tried to claim partial ownership of Helia Connect, arguing that I had developed it during our marriage using marital resources. My laptop, our internet connection, the time I had stolen from our relationship to build something extraordinary. But I had been careful. Every piece of code was written on personal equipment. Every business expense was paid from a separate account I had opened in secret. Every investor meeting was scheduled outside of work hours. I had protected my creation from a man who would have suffocated it in its cradle. The legal battle lasted 6 months, and cost me more than I wanted to spend, but Helia Connect remained entirely mine. My ambition, my vision, my empire. During the divorce proceedings, I poured myself into the platform with a ferocity that surprised even me. We launched new features, expanded to international markets, secured series of funding from a venture capital firm led by women who understood what we were building. The growth was exponential. 1 year after launch, Helia Connect had 10,000 users. 18 months in, we had 25,000. 2 years in, we were featured on the cover of Forbes with the headline, "The platform that is redefining female talent." But the moment that felt like true vindication came when I received an email from TEDx Women. "Dear founder," it began, "we would love to invite you to speak at our upcoming event about reclaiming underestimated ambition and the power of believing in your own vision." Standing on that red circle 18 months later, looking out at an audience of 2,000 women, and the cameras that would broadcast my story to millions more, I felt the full circle of my journey. "My name is Luna Sky," I began, "and I am here to talk about what happens when you stop asking for permission to become who you were meant to be." I told my story, the dismissive pat on the knee, the secret coding sessions, the choice between comfort and courage, the moment I recognized myself in my own reflection. But mostly, I talked about the women. The thousands of brilliant, underestimated women who had found their voices through Helia Connect, who had connected with startups that valued their contributions, who had discovered that their talents were not whims, they were weapons of change. The talk went viral within hours. 2 million views in the first week. 5 million within a month. It was shared across corporate Slack channels, university message boards, and family group chats. Women were tagging their daughters, their sisters, their friends who needed to hear that their ambitions were not too big for this world. I found out later that it had been shared in Kieran's company's Slack channel, multiple times, by colleagues who had no idea they were sharing his ex-wife's triumph. A mutual friend told me he watched it during his lunch break, sitting alone in his beige cubicle, probably wondering how the practical wife he had underestimated had become the woman everyone was talking about. 3 years after launch, Helia Connect was valued at $50 million. We had offices in 6 cities. Our platform had facilitated over 10,000 successful matches between talented women and startups that appreciated their contributions. We had been acquired by a larger tech company for an amount that would have seemed impossible when Kieran first patted my knee and called my vision a whim. But the numbers were not the victory. The victory was in the stories. Women writing to tell me that Helia Connect had helped them escape toxic work environments. Startups sharing how our platform had connected them with team members who transformed their companies. Young girls reaching out to say that my TEDx talk had inspired them to pursue their own impossible dreams. My office now has a wall-sized vision board covered with photos of the women who have found meaningful work through Helia Connect. Their faces remind me every day why I chose courage over comfort, why I protected my dreams from people who could not see their value. And by my door, there is a doormat that reads, "Unrealistic women build empires." Every month, Helia Connect connects thousands of women to fair-paying, purpose-driven work. Every month, we prove that there is a massive market for talent that refuses to be underestimated. Every month, we demonstrate that the most realistic thing a woman can do is bet on herself. Kieran is still in finance, still analyzing risk from the safety of his beige cubicle, still telling stories at industry parties about how he once dated that founder. But now when he mentions my name, people do not nod politely and change the subject. They lean in with genuine interest and say, "Wait, you mean Luna Sky? The woman who built Helia Connect? The one who gave that incredible TEDx talk?" And he has to smile and pretend that he always believed in me, that he always knew I was capable of building something extraordinary. He has to pretend that he was supportive rather than dismissive, encouraging rather than condescending. He has to pretend that he did not try to keep me small. Last month, I received a LinkedIn message from him. Just 3 words. "Congratulations on everything." I did not respond. There was nothing left to say. Sometimes, late at night in my loft with the terrible plumbing and incredible light, I think about the woman I was 3 years ago. The one who sat in that beige living room, feeling her dreams shrink under the weight of someone else's limitations. The one who almost believed that her ambitions were whims. I think about all the moments when I could have given up, when the coding got frustrating, when the networking felt overwhelming, when the investors said no, when the lawyers tried to steal my creation, when the loneliness of leaving everything familiar felt too heavy to bear. But then I think about the women, the thousands of women who have found their voices through Helia Connect, who have discovered that their talents are not too much for this world. They are exactly what this world needs. I think about Zara Patel, who left Morrison and Associates 6 months after I did, and now runs sustainable packaging operations for a startup that values her brilliance. She connected with them through Helia Connect, and her innovations have saved her company over $2 million while reducing their environmental impact by 60%. I think about Maya Chun, whose podcast gave me my first platform to share my story. She has interviewed over 100 female founders since then, amplifying voices that might otherwise have been dismissed as unrealistic. I think about every woman who has ever been told that her dreams are whims, her ambitions are impractical, her vision is too big for her circumstances. This story is for them. For the women who code in bathroom stalls and dream in spreadsheet margins. For the women who protect their ambitions from people who claim to love them, but cannot see them. For the women who choose courage over comfort, growth over safety, truth over approval. Your dreams are not whims. Your ambitions are not impractical. Your vision is not too big. The world needs what you are building. The world is waiting for your empire. Build it anyway. Build it especially when they tell you not to. Build it in secret if you have to. Build it while they sleep, while they doubt, while they underestimate what you are capable of creating. Build it because you recognize yourself in your own reflection, and that recognition is worth more than anyone else's approval. Build it because unrealistic women build empires, and this world desperately needs more empires built by women who refuse to be made small. The moment someone pats your knee and calls your billion-dollar idea a whim, remember this story. Remember that their limitations are not your reality. Remember that the people who love you but cannot see you are not the people who get to define what you become. Remember that somewhere, in a loft with terrible plumbing and incredible light. There is a woman who built exactly what they said was impossible. And if I can do it, so can you. If this story inspired you to pursue your own impossible dreams, please subscribe to our channel for more stories of women who chose courage over comfort and built empires from the ashes of other people's doubt. Your support helps us share these stories with women who need to hear that their ambitions are not too big for this world. They are exactly what this world needs.